my heart shattered as my son declared, "You have no meaning here anymore." Then I found hope. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that danced ominously across the room. I stood frozen, my breath caught in my throat. Liam's voice pierced through me like a blade, harsh and unforgiving. "You have no meaning here anymore." 3 words, sharp as glass. His eyes, once filled with affection, were now dark clouds. I searched for the spark of love that used to illuminate his face, but it was gone, snuffed out. I felt a lump form in my throat, heavy and suffocating. The silence that followed was deafening, wrapping around us like a suffocating blanket. I could almost hear my heart beating, frantically trying to process the chaos swirling inside me. Liam had always been my reason. I remember when he took his first steps trembling, unsure, and yet so determined. The tiny hands that once reached for me now pushed me away. "No more, Mom," he said, and I felt the world tilt. I was slipping into a void that I lifted my trembling hands to wipe the tears streaming down my cheeks, each drop burning like acid. How had we devolved so quickly? I thought of the laughter shared over breakfast, the late-night story times that seemed like yesterday. Those beautiful moments felt like a distant memory now, overshadowed by this gut-wrenching reality. His friends stood behind him, whispering to one another, casting glances filled with judgment. Some looked sympathetic, others wickedly satisfied. The weight of their stares felt suffocating. Liam's words hung heavily in the air, vibrating with the intensity of broken trust. "Why, Liam?" I whispered, my voice trembling, barely audible. But he just shook his head, the corners of his mouth turned downward in disdain. I searched his face for a flicker of warmth, some sign that my boy was still in there. And then it hit me what had changed. My mind raced. Was it the pressures of high school? The influence of his friends? Or had I failed him in some unforgivable way? Hope felt like a taunting ghost, flickering just beyond my reach. In that moment, my heartbeat quickened, a desperate cry for answers. What could I do? I had lost him in an instant, and I wasn't ready to let go. Then, a soft voice pierced through my despair. "Hello, come around, Mrs. Harper." It was Mrs. Jenkins, the neighbor, kind-hearted, always the voice of reason. Yet, her words felt flimsy in the chaos of my heartache. How could she be so optimistic in the face of such devastation? I glanced back at Liam, my beautiful son, no longer the boy who needed me. The door slamming behind him echoed like a gunshot. In that quiet room, surrounded by remnants of our once joyous life, I felt raw and exposed. The uncertainty clawed at me, gnawing relentlessly. This fight wasn't just about him anymore, it was about me, too. But little did I know, lurking just outside our door was a strange light, an indiscernible force that would challenge everything I believed about my son, about myself. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed were a blur of routines interrupted by grief. Each morning, the sun would rise, bright and bold, but its warmth felt distant, as if I were watching life through a frosted window. I found myself moving through the motions, the rhythm of daily chores a monotonous cycle, where I wash, clean, and cook, hoping the familiar tasks might somehow ground me. But the pain of Liam's words clung to me like a shadow, an unwelcome companion. I folded the laundry-worn t-shirts and jeans, each fabric a reminder of his childhood. I caught sight of a forgotten project on the kitchen table. A half-finished model airplane, something we had started together when he was younger. I could almost hear his laughter ringing in my ears as we struggled to get the pieces to fit just right. My heart ached. Did he even remember those moments? Just then, a hesitant knock broke through my reverie, and Mrs. Jenkins stepped inside. "I brought you some cookies," she said, carrying a small plate adorned with soft, warm treats. Her presence was a balm, a flicker of kindness amidst my sorrow. "Thank you," I managed, my voice barely a whisper, but I felt the weight of her compassion seep into my bones. She sat down, observing me closely, her eyes searching for the words I could not speak. Liam is going through a lot, she began gently. Teenage years can be turbulent, you know. I nodded, struggling to formulate my thoughts. I just don't understand why he would turn away from me like that. I thought I had been a good mother. You have been, she insisted, placing her hand over mine. Sometimes they lash out at the ones they love the most. It's a way of pushing boundaries, testing limits. I looked up, meeting her kind gaze. But it hurts, Mrs. Jenkins. I feel like I'm losing him. We all go through trying times, she said, her voice soft but filled with steadfastness. Sometimes, it's just a matter of letting them find their way back. They might surprise us. As we talked, I felt a small flicker of hope reignite within me. Maybe I just needed to give Liam space, to let him breathe. Although uncertainty wrapped around me like a thick fog, I took that small moment of connection as a seed of possibility. But later that evening, when I tried to reach out to him, I found the door to his room closed, a physical barrier that magnified my fears. Liam? I said softly, my voice barely breaking the silence. Nothing. My heart sank, the sound of his quiet indifference piercing through me once more. Weeks blurred into a mind-numbing routine of solitude. I found myself walking to the park where Liam used to ride his bike, the rusted swings creaking in the wind. Nostalgia washed over me. The echoes of children's laughter flooded my mind, intertwining with the pang of loss. It was here I allowed my heart to breathe, where I unfolded my longing not just for my son, but for myself, for the love that once filled our lives. That on a particularly gray afternoon, I noticed a boy sitting alone on a bench. He looked like a younger version of Liam, lost and sad, staring into nothingness. I felt an urge to approach him. "Hey," I said, my voice gentle. "Everything okay?" He looked up, surprise flashing across his face. "Just thinking," he said quietly, his words tinged with melancholy. "Me too," I admitted, taking a seat beside him. It was a strange moment, sharing silence with a stranger, yet he felt familiar. I shared a little about Liam, how he used to ride his bike down this path as a child, and the boy nodded, as if he understood. "I used to think I would never grow apart from my parents," he said finally, a frown creasing his brow. "I guess that changes when you find yourself." My heart ached at his words. "It does," I whispered, feeling the weight of his truth settle on my chest. "But change doesn't mean you stop loving them." Just as I was about to offer more comfort, a cheerful voice rang out. "Jack, come on." A tall girl appeared, waving her arms, her laughter bright and infectious. The boy's face transformed, illuminating in a way that reminded me of Liam. He stood, glancing back at me with a soft smile, and for a moment, I saw a connection that transcended our initial solitude. "Thanks," he said simply before running off to join his friends. Watching them all together, laughter echoing around the park, I felt a bittersweet longing. Could Liam ever find his way back to that brightness? Returning home, I found myself staring at the note pinned to the fridge, a scribbled reminder from him. "Mom, please don't disturb me." But now it felt different. It carried layers, hiding more than just words. A fragile thread linking us, waiting for the right moment to unravel. That night, I tossed and turned, sleep a faint whisper just out of reach. And then, suddenly, the silence shattered with a loud crash. I popped up from my bed, my heart racing, dread curling in my stomach. Had Liam? I rushed to his room, the door slightly ajar, and peeked inside. To my horror, it was empty. The window was wide open. Had he run away? My breath quickened as I rushed to the patio, the night air chilling my exposed skin. But there, silhouetted against the inky sky, I saw him, standing at the edge of our yard, a dark figure, his back to me. The turmoil churning inside me twisted once more, and as Liam turned, our eyes met. An expression of defiance burned on his face, yet in that moment, something shifted. A flicker of uncertainty, a question unvoiced. And then, to my shock, he reached into his pocket, pulling out a small object that sparkled under the moonlight. My heart stopped. Anxiety constricted my chest. What could it be? I stepped closer, not yet ready to break the fragile silence. And in that suspended breath between us, the night felt electric, thick with all the unsaid things, teetering on a precipice of change. The tension hung in the air, thick and weighted, as I stood frozen on the patio, watching Liam. The moon cast a silver glow around him, illuminating the confusion etched on his young face. I could hardly breathe, every heartbeat resonating with a mix of fear and hope. Liam, I called softly, my voice a fragile whisper, afraid to shatter the moment. He flinched, but didn't turn away. For a brief second, it felt like we were suspended in time, caught between the past and the uncertain future. Just leave me alone, Mom, he snapped, his shoulders tightening as if bracing for a storm. Yet his grip on the object in his hand faltered, and I caught a glimpse of a metallic glimmer. What was it? Please, I said, taking a hesitant step toward him. Can we talk? No. There's nothing to talk about. The sharpness of his words stung, but I clung to the hope buried in them. There was something inside him yearning to break free, and beyond all the confusion lay the boy I once knew. The one who built model airplanes at the kitchen table with me. The one who laughed and shared stories only to fall asleep in my lap. He raised the small object high, letting the moonlight dance across its surface. You wouldn't understand. I squinted, trying to discern what it was, but then realization dawned. A keychain, his old keychain from junior high, a small trinket vividly decorated with a fading superhero emblem, the symbol of a time when his greatest battles took place on playgrounds and kitchen counters, not in the silence of a dark room. Liam, that keychain. I stepped closer, the fragile night air seeming to weave strands of familiarity between us. You love that. It was your reminder that you could be anything you wanted to be. For a moment, his defenses faltered. The tension in his brow softened, his eyes searching mine for something. Maybe understanding, maybe forgiveness. It feels stupid now, he muttered, almost to himself, as if the weight of adolescence had forged a wall between the boy he used to be and the young man he was trying to become. Stupid? No, it's part of who you are, I said, feeling the barest hint of connection crackle between us. You were brave and full of dreams back then, Liam. I still see that in you. He turned sharply at that. You don't know what it's like. You don't understand. But I had seen shadows of his struggles, the sadness that sometimes tracked across his face, the sorrow in his laughter. You're right. I don't completely understand. But I want to. I'm trying to, Liam. Please, just give me a chance. Silence enveloped us again, the cicadas serenading the growing night. He lowered the keychain, its significance becoming clearer in the glow of the moonlight. I don't want you to see me like this, he whispered, his voice trembling. I'm lost. Just then, it hit me the keychain wasn't just a remnant of his childhood. It was a plea for connection. He feared losing the very bond we were on the verge of reclaiming. You're not lost, I said gently, struggling to mask the tremor in my voice. You're in the process of figuring it out, just like I am. We both are together. A flicker of uncertainty gripped him, but before I could say more, he turned away. I need to be alone. Liam, I cried, desperation clawing at my chest. But then, he dashed for the back of the yard, his silhouette swallowed in shadows as he moved. He was running away, and my heart hitched painfully in my throat. Wait, I called after him, but the weight of distance colored my words, and I felt the gulf between us widen. His feet carried him further from me, the boy I feared I had lost forever. But then, in that moment of pure despair, something within me shifted. I flicked on my phone's flashlight, the beam catching up to him as he halted, suddenly lit against the darkness. His vulnerability glimmered for a moment like that keychain, fragile yet resilient. Sometimes, I began, my voice steadier than I felt. We need to get lost in order to find ourselves. He turned back to face me. You're just saying that. No, I insisted, my heart racing as I took a slow step forward, my own shadow stretching alongside his. I mean it. We all have to face our darkness, Liam. I can't promise to understand everything, but I can promise to be by your side while you do. His breath hitched. The light of my phone illuminated his tear-stained cheeks, and in that instant, a small, raw part of me felt heard. It was the echo of the connection we once held, and though the distance was still great, I could feel the tremors of something shifting between us. Just then, a flicker of light caught my eye down by the edge of our yard. The remnants of a burning paper lantern, forgotten by the neighbors, rose slowly into the sky, sending a soft glow into the night. Look, I exclaimed, pointing towards it. It's going up. It could take our wishes with it. Let us make a wish together, just like when you were little. He glanced at me, the shadows of his loneliness still clutching tightly at his heart. But I could see the glimmer of intrigue, the boy within him briefly illuminated by fond memories. A mixture of longing and uncertainty played like a rhythm across his heart, and I prayed that tonight he might choose to step closer rather than farther away. Just as he took a tentative step back toward me, the lantern burst into a display of brilliant colors, illuminating the edges of our fractured hearts with glowing potential. Yet in the fragile warmth of that moment, I felt an unsettling chill prickling at my spine. What if the lantern carried more than just wishes? What if it carried the secrets of what he had been hiding? With that thought, the darkness wrapped around my heart tightened, and as I looked at my son, standing at the edge of uncertainty, the unrelenting question unraveled itself. What was he really hiding? The night's secrets danced around us, waiting for their moment to be revealed. I stood there, the faint glow of the lantern reflecting in my eyes, as the realization churned within me like a storm. The echoes of despair clashed with the flickering light of hope, battling for dominance over my heart. What lay beneath the surface of Liam's anger? What had he kept shrouded in silence? I felt paralyzed by the weight of questions that hung in the air like clouds before rain. Liam, I began, drawing on every ounce of courage I had left. Please, I know it's hard, but you don't have to hide from me. Just tell me what is going on. I can't help you if I don't know. He hesitated, his gaze flitting back and forth between me and the disappearing lantern, which had become a point of light in our suffocating darkness. For a heartbeat, I thought I could almost see the boy I used to know, the one who wore his heart on his sleeve. Why do you care? He asked, his tone sharp yet vulnerable, like glass on the edge of breaking. Because you're my son, I replied, voice steadier than I felt. And I love you. But I can't help if you don't let me in. He shook his head vigorously, pain etched across his brow. You think love is enough? You think you can just say that, and it magically makes everything better? No, I replied softly, seeking a bridge through his storm. But it's a start. It's a promise that whatever is happening, we'll face it together. You don't have to fight it alone. His face twisted, turmoil battling the fleeting hints of tenderness. You don't know what it was like today, what they said. Who? My heart raced, the word escaping before I could stop it. My instincts kicked in, every motherly instinct flaring alive. Liam, please talk to me. Who were they? What did they say? He opened his mouth, visibly wrestling with the words that clawed at the back of his throat. But finally, he just clenched his jaw tight, fighting against whatever was threatening to pour out. You wouldn't understand. He yelled, frustration twisting his features. Try me, I urged, desperate for any thread that could connect us again. You'd be surprised what I can understand, especially when it comes to you. A cloud of anger formed, but in its center was something softer, raw, human. They called me names, Mom. They said I wasn't worth anyone's time, that I was a waste. My heart shattered at his admission, the jagged edges cutting deep as I stepped closer, willing my love to breach the space between us. The very thought of my son, my talented, creative Liam, feeling worthless was unbearable. That is not true, I whispered. I feel like it is, he confessed, the vulnerability in his voice causing my throat to constrict painfully. I don't belong anywhere anymore. Not at school, not with friends. Not here. Suddenly, the lantern flickered above us, sending a cascade of warm light, and in the soft embrace of that glow, I reached for him, needing to bridge the chasm between us. Liam, you belong here. You belong with me. There is so much more to you than the whispers of those who don't see the real you. His defenses began to crack, eyes shimmering with unshed tears as he looked at me, searching for reassurance. It's too late for that. I've already lost everything. No, I countered, my voice steady and resolute. We can't change what has happened, but we can shape what comes next together. You're not lost. You're here with me, and that means we can rebuild. As if in response to my words, the lantern began to waver, the fabric of its exterior fluttering beneath invisible hands. It swayed gently as if teasing us with the possibility of new beginnings. Then he took a step forward, and I thought for a spark of a moment that maybe, just maybe, he would let me in. I could almost sense the boy still alive beneath the layers of hurt. But what if I don't want to? He said softly, the fight gone from his voice. Then we'll figure out how to want to, I replied, my heart racing. One step at a time. And we'll take them together. You're not alone. You're not alone in this journey. even if it feels that way. Just as hope settled like a fragile butterfly in the air between us, a loud crash echoed from the street behind us. I turned abruptly, fear flooding my senses, when suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, someone I had never expected to see again. It was Liam's old best friend, Dylan, his expression a mix of concern and regret. "Liam, I need to talk to you. Now," he said, urgency lacing his voice. Caught off guard, the tension in the air solidified like a sudden wall between us. Liam's expression shifted from curiosity to something darker, an unfamiliar look clouding his features. "Dylan, what do you want?" he asked, a hint of hostility creeping back in. As I looked from Liam to Dylan, dread settled in my stomach. What more secrets lay hidden between them? What had transpired during their absence from each other? Before I could even fathom a response, Dylan's eyes darted to me and back to Liam, desperation spilling from him. "Please, just listen to me. It's about what happened today." And in that moment, just as every new hope began to thread through our fragile connection, the winds of change shifted again, leaving me with an unsettling question. What had Dylan come to reveal? The fear buried deep in my gut resurfaced. Was this the beginning of healing or the unraveling of everything we had fought for that night? The night felt heavy with anticipation, the air thick enough to hold secrets like raindrops before a storm. I stood between the two boys, my heart a fragile pendulum swinging between hope and dread. Dylan's face was a storm of worry and regret, while Liam's expression hardened, almost daring the truth to cut through the remaining threads of our fragile connection. "What do you mean, Dylan? Just spit it out," Liam spat, his frustration echoing in the stillness that followed. "It's about the fight," Dylan pressed, his voice wavering. He glanced at me quickly, as if gauging my reaction before he continued. "It's not what you think. I mean, there's more than just words." Liam tensed at the mention of the fight, and I could see the flicker of hurt behind his eyes, like a match waiting for a spark. "More than just words? Are you saying I deserved it? That this is my fault?" No, that's not what I mean," Dylan rushed, hands raised defensively. "Look, I know I messed up. I shouldn't have let them get to you. But I didn't know they were going to escalate it. They've been spreading rumors, and it's spiraled out of control." "Rumors?" Liam echoed, disbelief pouring like poison into his voice. "You mean they've been talking about me behind my back? Just like you then? Just like how you abandoned me when it mattered most?" Dylan flinched, and my heart twisted at the rawness of the truth Liam had hurled. Every parent dreads witnessing their child lash out, especially when the hurt spills from a well of deep betrayal. But as I looked at Dylan, I saw a flicker of something remorse. Fear. "Liam, listen," Dylan pleaded, his voice cracking. "I came back because I wanted to help. I care. I'm here now. You're not alone." But Liam turned away, arms folding protectively over his chest. It was a gesture that spoke volumes, one of a boy so burdened by pain that he could hardly see the gestures of friendship reaching out to him. "You're late," Liam said, voice barely above a whisper. "You don't get to act like you care after what happened." The air around us grew thick with unresolved tension, a palpable thing that pressed down on my shoulders. I felt desperate to bridge the gap, to cut through the rising tide of anger and shame. "Liam, you can still choose who to let in. Dylan is here, now maybe he's just trying to help." But what could I say? My voice felt small, trembling like the light of the lantern swaying above us. It was the only thing illuminating our struggle, casting wraith-like shadows that seemed to mock the disarray of emotions swirling within the small space. "Help," Liam scoffed, each word laced with disbelief. "Where the hell were you when I needed you, Dylan? When I was lying there feeling worthless? I thought everyone was gone, that you didn't want me around." Dylan interrupted, desperation turning to frustration, his own voice breaking. "Then you should," he asked. "You shouldn't have left me alone." Liam's voice cracked, a mixture of hurt and rage pouring out like a dam burst. I felt the tears pooling in my own eyes, raw and unrelenting. It was painful to watch my son battle against the ghost of friendship loss clutching like a cold hand around his heart. The longing for connection battled fiercely against betrayal, and I could see him teetering on the edge of deciding which way to fall. "Liam, please," Dylan's voice softened, the urgency slipping away to reveal a vulnerability of his own. "They're planning something more than just words. If you distance yourself, they win. Don't let them take you away from your life. What do you mean? Liam demanded, the edge of curiosity barely breaking through his protective walls. I heard them, some of the guys, Dylan replied. People you think are your friends. Tomorrow, they're going to take it further. It won't just be words, they want to hurt you, physically. My stomach tightened at Dylan's revelation, a chill running through me as I took a step closer to Liam. His expression flickered, caught between disbelief and instinctive fear. What are you talking about? He whispered, dread pooling in his gut. Maybe they're planning to ambush you after school. They think it's a joke, a way to prove something. But it's serious. I didn't want to believe it, I just thought you should know. A silence fell over us like a heavy fog, a mix of shock and realization pooling in the air. Liam's hands clenched and unclenched at his sides, warring with the flood of emotions threatening to sweep him away. Why would you tell me this now? Liam finally asked, the fight seeping from his voice. Why should I trust you? Because I care, Dylan replied, his own vulnerability spilling over. Because I've watched you suffer, and I can't let you go through this alone. You deserve better. You need to fight back. Fight back? Liam echoed, a slight tremor in his voice. What? Just give in to the rage. Just let them see that they got to me. No, I interjected, my heart racing as I stepped further into the conversation, hoping to anchor him. You can fight back by standing tall, by refusing to let them define who you are. Show them you're stronger than their hate. Liam hesitated, his breath coming in ragged bursts, the storm within him still raging. But something flickered in his eyes, possibility born from the chaos. I could see the moment a fragile sense of agency began to form, threading through the layers of pain that wasn't a solution. But it was the light of hope, a flicker that could lead him back from the edge. Just when I thought we might pull through this, just when the delicate balance felt reachable, another crash echoed from the street, pulling our attention toward the noise outside. My heart dropped, fear gripping me again like ice. The world beyond the door felt suddenly hostile, dark shadows flitting past the windows. Mom, Liam began, his voice trailing off as the realization set in. Dylan stepped forward, his voice low and steady. We need to go check it out, together. Whatever it is, we face it together. Right then, the weight of truth settled heavily over us. Before we could reshape our reality, before we confronted whatever darkness loomed outside, I felt a foreboding sense this was far from over, and the night was just beginning. The shadows outside continued to dance menacingly, sending a ripple of unease through me as I glanced back at Liam. His expression was one I couldn't read, torn between despair and a flicker of courage. He stood there, legs anchored as if the ground had swallowed him, unable to decide whether to run or confront whatever awaited us out there in the darkness. Dylan glanced at me, and in that brief moment, I saw an echo of the boy I once knew, a boy filled with dreams and genuine goodness, battling his own inner storms. We can't stay here, he insisted softly, gesturing for Liam to follow him. If they're out there, we have to know. Ignoring it won't make it go away. You can't hide forever. The words struck a chord deep within me. I had spent so much time convincing Liam to shield himself, to retreat from the cruelties of the world. But perhaps what we really needed was to bravely face it together. With a determined nod, I found my footing alongside them, a silent pact forming within that charged atmosphere. Let us check the door, I said as we approached carefully, the three of us forming a tight circle of solidarity. We were bound not just by blood, but by shared scars and the weight of an unfolding truth. I reached for the doorknob. My heart thudded heavily in my chest, a rhythmic reminder of all the emotions that had brought us to this moment. I hesitated, a part of me desperately wanting to shield Liam from any more pain. But alternate emotions stoked the fire within. It was time we confronted the storm, together. The air outside chilled me as the door creaked open. The street lay before us, shrouded in darkness, save for a murky flash of light illuminating a cluster of boys gathered a few blocks down. There they stood, packs of laughter and bravado echoing through the night, cruel and reckless as though they were sickly moths drawn to a flame of their own making. It's them, Dylan whispered, his voice barely carrying above the adrenaline pulsing through my veins. They're celebrating something, whatever they've been planning. Liam clenched his fists, his brows furrowing dangerously as the shadows of his fears mingled with a vague sense of rage. I could see it building within him, a flame flickering against the icy tendrils of doubt. What do they want? He muttered, as if he were speaking to himself, searching for the courage laced in his own words. I don't know, but we can't let them think they own this place. We have to show them that they can't scare us, Dylan urged, a fire igniting in his blue eyes that I hadn't seen before. You're not alone, Liam. You have us, and that counts for something. Liam's jaw clenched as he absorbed Dylan's words, that flicker of possibility slowly turning into a spark. So what do? He asked suddenly, as if shifting gears in his mind, rejecting the paralyzing fear that clawed at his insides. Let us gather evidence, something we can throw back in their faces, Dylan suggested. If we're going to confront them, let us do it with proof. Something that shows everyone just how ridiculous they've become. We want to let them make this our story. Hope kindled in my chest, matching the intensity of the determination brewing between the two boys. Let us observe first. We'll stay out of sight and see what they're up to, I proposed, hoping the plan would solidify Liam's shaken spirit. The three of us crept quietly down the street, shadows trailing our movements as we took shelter behind parked cars and trees, stealing glances toward the group of boys. Their laughter rang out, sharp and cruel, punctuated by slaps to each other's backs, as they readied themselves for whatever twisted game they were planning. My heart ached at the sight. What would it take for them to see the pain they inflicted? Then, unexpectedly, one of the boys at the center of the group stumbled off to the side, leaning against a fence to catch his breath. His laughter faded momentarily, revealing a moment of vulnerability that captivated me. The facade cracked, exposing a boy who was just as lost as Liam. Maybe they're just as scared as you are, I murmured to Liam, catching his startled gaze. Sometimes I hesitated, considering my next words carefully. Sometimes, those who act the toughest are the most afraid. Liam stared at me, his eyes wide, the pieces mending within his resolve. You think so? He whispered, doubt and hope dancing in his voice, allowing a thin line of understanding to weave between the boys outside and the inner turmoil in his own heart. Before I could answer, a shout rang out, a voice slicing through the night air. What are you looking at, losers? The laughter died as the boys turned to look our way, eyes glinting menacingly in the fading light. Fear crashed over us as I felt the icy grip of reality close in. My heart raced, realizing that this moment could either unite us or pull us apart for good. We need to go, I urged, afraid of what would happen next, not fully aware of how this confrontation might unfold. But before I could pull Liam away, he whispered, anchored in determination, no, not yet. This ends here. His voice trembled, courage spilling forth as he stepped from our hiding place, ready to stand against the boys who had haunted him for so long. I held my breath, fear mixing with a strange sense of pride as he faced his fears, but also fear for the uncertainty ahead. Then unexpectedly, one of the boys, a familiar face nestled within the group, glanced back at Liam, eyes widening in shock. Liam? You've got some nerve showing up, he sneered, but there was a flicker of surprise that spoke volumes. Enough, Liam shouted, his voice no longer the trembling whisper but a fierce declaration. You think you can control this place with fear? You're wrong. The scene froze, and for a moment, everything hung in the balance, the tension palpable, a mix of disbelief and raw emotion radiating through the air. But just as the echoes of Liam's words settled, an unexpected figure emerged from the crowd, one I hadn't seen in what felt like ages, eyes hidden beneath the brim of a cap, a figure I'd never expected would come to join this moment. A glimmer of warmth pierced through my worry. The way the newcomer stood, something shifted in the dynamics of the moment. My heart sank, waiting for the chaos that welling emotions promised could unravel at any second. The question hung in the air, the answer a mystery that threatened to unravel everything we thought we knew about the night and the choices that lay ahead. Liam's voice rang out, echoing through the charged atmosphere, and I could feel the shock waves ripple through the crowd. My heart raced as I struggled to make sense of what was happening in front of me. Just as I thought the situation could not escalate further, the figure that stepped forward from the throng shook me to my core. It was Jake, a childhood friend of Liam's, someone who used to light up the dimmest rooms with laughter. But now, his expression was taut, his posture tense, and the proverbial lines drawn. He was entangled in their world, and yet, somehow, he wasn't wholly part of it. Something flickered in his eyes, almost as if he were standing on a precipice, a reminder of the boy he once was mingled with the bravado of the boy he'd become. Liam, he called out, edging forward with a hint of vulnerability threading through his bravado. You don't know what you're doing. Just walk away. This isn't worth it. The air shifted dangerously as murmurs spread through both sides of the confrontation. The boys surrounding Jake shot glances of mixed confusion and irritation. For a moment, it felt like everything hung in limbo, each heartbeat stretching time to its limits. Why? Because of what you all think is strength? Liam stepped forward, narrowing the distance between them. What does it take for one of you to realize that hurting others doesn't make you strong? Jake's face hardened briefly, but I saw the internal struggle that mirrored Liam's own battles. His bravado tempered into something that resembled fear and maybe even remorse, but it was quickly masked by his friend's jibes. Look at you, Liam. You're a joke. What? You think you can come back from this? We own these streets. Jake's voice dripped with a mixture of mockery and desperation, as if proving himself to his peers was a necessity. Despite his placating words, I felt the urge to rush forward, to shield Liam from this torment, but remained frozen, rooted by the unspoken weight of inclusion and camaraderie surging through the boys' interactions. They were living out a scene that played out far too often. The struggle between loyalty to a broken system and the longing for the authenticity of genuine connections. But through it all, Liam held his ground, radiating defiance and determination. You think that's what owning something means? You think that by pushing me down, you make yourself stronger? All you're creating is more pain. Life doesn't have to be this way. A glimmer of hope ignited within me as I watched him challenge the very fabric of the fear that had gripped him for far too long. Then, in an unexpected moment, Jake paused. Maybe you don't understand what this means for us. It's not just words, we've all lost something. His voice dropped, the tension momentarily dissolving into a facade of shared pain that Liam's brow furrowed as he grasped the crux of the moment, hanging by a thread. What have you lost? Your humanity? He took a step forward, a bold act that kept us all tethered to the moment. I lost my best friend when you decided it was easier to scare and control than to be real. You don't have to be this way. The deep silence that followed was almost tangible, a vacuum filled with conflicting emotions. I held my breath, praying that this was a turning point, a bridge to understanding. The flickering hope that danced in my heart almost lulled me into a dream that perhaps by confronting our fears together, we could find a shared path into light. Just then, from behind me, the unexpected warmth of a hand on my shoulder jolted me. Turning swiftly, I found Mr. Thompson, our neighbor and a figure of stability in this chaotic world. He had witnessed our gathering, his expression a mixture of concern and determination. Enough of this, he spoke softly yet resolutely, his voice slicing through the tension. All of you, this needs to stop now. The boys turned to him, hesitance creeping into their expressions. Mr. Thompson had a way of gathering strength simply by standing tall and speaking from a place of empathy. Is this who you want to be? A group that thrives on pain and fear? Or can you summon the strength to be better to change? In that moment, the air shimmered with possibilities, and I dared to hope that what lay ahead was not another cycle of anger and retribution, but the whispered promise of understanding. As if caught in the crosshairs of a greater narrative, I felt united with these boys, challenging the old storylines that had persisted for far too long. But just as the fragile web of unity began to form, the last voice I wanted to hear rang out, a voice I had hoped would never resurface. Let's see how much courage you really have, Liam. The taunting laughter echoed through the street, and before I could comprehend it all, the figure of Derek pushed through the group, a hulking form that embodied toxic bravado embodied in flesh. Rage washed over my son's face, and the air crackled with a new kind of fear, one I desperately wished to shield him from but couldn't. How dare you come here? Derek continued, his voice a low growl, each word a weight that settled like shadows, spilling over the precarious moment. You think you're strong? You're nothing. My breath caught in my throat as I weighed the impending conflict, knowing that this moment could spiral out of control before we could find a way to mend the rift. Liam stood tall, fury igniting the fire behind his eyes, a mixture of confrontation brewing inside him. Yet it felt like the storm had only just begun. But then something unexpected happened. Jake, caught between loyalty and awakening, stepped back slightly, a flash of uncertainty sweeping through him. I saw it in his eyes, a longing for something more than what this night had become. Liam, Jake whispered, just loud enough for us to hear, as if searching within for the courage he could not muster. You can break this with me. In that raw moment, caught between darkness and a new dawn, it was clear. The fragile ties that bound them were about to snap, or perhaps intertwine towards something hopeful. But as Derek advanced, shadows danced around us all, and the cliff of chaos beckoned with a threat that could unravel it all. That my heart sank. Foreboding eclipsing the tiny flame of hope ignited moments ago. With every step Derek took, it felt like we were stumbling closer toward an abyss, teetering on the edge of the known and unknown as we faced our fears head-on. But it seemed there was no turning back now. In the midst of feigned strength and the fear of unveiled truths, everything was about to shatter once again. The world around me narrowed to the oppressive weight of the moment, the echo of Derek's menacing approach drowning out the distant sounds of the neighborhood. Each step he took seemed fortified by every wound, every betrayal, and every moment of doubt that had built walls around our hearts until they felt insurmountable. I could see the flicker of fear in my son's eyes, a reflection of uncertainty battling against the steel resolve he had summoned. You think you can walk back into our lives and challenge us? Derek's voice wormed its way through the anxious crowd, targeting the vulnerability that hung in the air like thick fog. The tension crackled, and I felt my breath quicken, desperate for anything that might defuse the situation spiraling out of control. From my periphery, I caught a glimpse of Mr. Thompson, still anchored but now clearly distressed. He looked between the boys, his gaze firm and cautious, as if trying to harness their collective energy into something constructive. This isn't how we do things, he urged, disappointment tinged with an edge of fear. You all have a choice to make. But Derek didn't appear swayed. His instincts, honed by selfish desires, seemed to cloud any thread of empathy or reason. Choices? What choices did I have when I was left alone? You think you found a way out? He pointed at Liam, voice dripping with disdain. You're all just pathetic, running around, playing pretend while kids like us are surviving out here every single day. Suddenly, the ground seemed to shake beneath us as Liam took a decisive step forward. Surviving doesn't mean inflicting pain on others. It's possible to rise without pushing others down. Derek, all you've done is destroy those around you. Every word Liam spoke caught in my throat the weight of truth. The rawness of his demand for change carried a current that I desperately wished would pull Derek into the light too. But shadows loomed thick around him, tethering him tighter to despair. Stop being naive. Derek spat, frustration pouring from him like electricity. The world is cruel, Liam. You can't change that. You think you're some kind of hero? But Jake, still caught in the crossfire, observed as Liam stood firm, absorbing the waves of antagonism. I watched him wrestle with a choice I'd hoped he would make. It's not about being a hero, Jake finally interjected, words faltering as if they were heavy stones. It's about being human. And that's what you've forgotten, Derek. We're all humans trying to make sense of this. The boyhood connection that had once made us laugh under the sun now flickered with the potential to mend, or perhaps to further break. I could see the doubt casting a shadow over Derek's eyes, a brief crack forming in his rigid facade. Hope wrestled against despair, a poignant moment of vulnerability barely surfacing. But then Derek fought back, anger rising anew. Humans? You think that's what we are? You're just playing house, Jake. We've got a life to survive. His hands clenched into fists as if to crush the very notion of warmth and kindness that lingered in the air. Yet it was Jake, San Francisco's unassuming son, who seemed to tether the flickering light of change entwined within himself. He took a deep, shaky breath and stood tall, a quiet resolve ignited in his chest. That strength doesn't come from violence, Derek. You know that deep down. As silence washed over us, I held on to the moment, praying that Derek's heart, buried underneath layers of hurt and anger, would respond. The words hung in the air, heavy with possibilities that could either give rise to a new foundation or deepen the chasms carved by their past. That moment, a strange noise interrupted, not the clatter of fists colliding, but a sharp crack that felt like thunder resonating in my bones. A car rushed by, stirring everything into chaos. I instinctively grabbed my son's arm, and in that split second of confusion, I lost sight of the flicker of hope I had felt moments ago. Derek's expression changed, but not out of fear. It was sudden realization, as if the weight of the world shifted in a fleeting spark. In a flash, he sneered and then pivoted, shoving Jake aside, a reservoir of pent-up rage spilling free. "You want to be different?" he hissed at Liam. "Let us see how different you really are." The moment felt as if it was descending into a vortex where nothing could save us. But as Derek advanced like dark clouds gathering, I felt the ground beneath us tremble more violently than before. The boys around us reeled back, and suddenly, with a deafening crash, the night splintered into chaos as one of the streetlights flickered ominously before cascading to the ground. The blinding light shattered with a sharp clatter as the world darkened. In that heart-stopping moment, everything felt suspended: our choices, our fears, our connections. I could almost hear the whispers of what we truly wanted to forge between us. And in the haze, beneath the cracks of what was, I turned to Liam only to find him staring intently into the swirling chaos, his resolve more elastic now, as a path forward materialized in his gaze. But did I dare hope that this was the moment we found the strength to break through? With darkness sweeping in and all bets off, I knew that whatever lay ahead was as uncertain as the flickering shadows around us, and I clung to my son like a lifeline. Would he find his way through the storm, or would we be swept away into uncharted depths? The darkness enveloped us like a thick fog, oppressive and heavy, muting the world beyond. I felt the pulse of tension reverberate between the boys, blurring the boundary between friendship and rivalry. Liam's eyes darted from Derek to Jake, a vortex of emotions swirling as if trying to catch each fleeting moment: the fear, the rage, and a blasted hope, all colliding in a single breath. "Liam," I urged, barely above a whisper, but within the chaos, my voice felt far away. Would he act? Would he defy the storm brewing in front of him? My stomach twisted as I caught sight of the flickering remnants of the shattered streetlight, flashing images of the boy he once was: carefree, naively innocent. Derek's anger, raw and barely contained, flared even brighter, cutting through my growing despair. "You think you can talk down to me?" he shouted, his words dripping venom, each syllable a barb aimed at the tender heart of my son. "You are just a little boy in a big world, pretending things should be different." Liam stood steadfast, though rooted like an ancient tree. "Pretending isn't what I'm doing. It's about believing in something bigger. We can change this," he managed, voice trembling but resolute. He was undeniably brave, and at that moment, despite the shadow lurking around Derek, I felt a flicker of hope reignite deep within me. Yet, as the air thickened, the fear around us became tangible. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from a nearby alley, shattering the fragile silence. Moments later, a small figure emerged, drenched and shivering but defiantly striding toward us. It was Maria, the girl who used to play hopscotch on the sidewalk, now hardened by the unforgiving streets. I remembered when we had all played together, ease filling the air before life as trials sowed seeds of distrust among our children. "Get back!" Derek screamed, his bravado faltering as he took a step back from the sudden intrusion. But Maria didn't waver. She approached with purpose, her fierce eyes searching the group with an intensity that took us all by surprise. "What is happening?" she demanded, sensing the charged atmosphere. How was it possible for her to be so unaware, yet so aware all at once? "You think this is what we need? Fighting each other while the world outside is falling apart?" The question hung in the air, demanding answers that felt buried beneath the weight of our pride. She turned to Liam, her gaze piercing through the tension. "You want something different? Then we need to show Derek what it means to belong instead of tearing each other apart." I breathed deeply, struck anew by her strength, a reminder that even the smallest gestures could push against the weight of despair. Could one voice be enough to untangle the strings binding Derek to his rage? "Maria's right," Jake interjected, stepping forward, his voice steadier now. "Together, all of us, this fight doesn't define who we can become." But the vulnerability of the moment felt as ephemeral as the shattering glass that lay scattered at our feet. I craved to nurture the flickers of warmth igniting between them. Yet dread coiled in my gut as I considered the possibility that Derek may never embrace the path to healing. Then Derek's face twisted with confusion, fury, and something else, an unfamiliar sadness that couldn't linger without consequence. You want me to trust you? After everything? His defenses quavered, the vivid emotions playing across his features, cracking the hard shell he'd built around his heart. Liam's resolve churned with compassion as he stepped closer. We all deserve a chance, Derek. Trust isn't built overnight, but it's a start. And in that charged moment, as if the universe had aligned just right, my son extended his hand to Derek, a gesture filled with vulnerability and sincerity. But just then, the wind howled, sending a sharp gust through the air, and I braced myself for whatever storm was brewing not just outside, but inside us all. That I could see the wall of silence threatening to crush us, the air thickening with uncertainty. Would Derek take that hand, or would he fight, choosing the bitter solace of anger instead of the fragile chance of understanding? But before a decision could be made, the shrill shriek of sirens cut through the night, their sound heralding impending chaos. It sent all of us reeling back, shaking the delicate truce that had finally begun to form. I watched in horror as Derek's expression hardened, his volatile energy snapping back as he recoiled from Liam's outstretched palm. For an agonizing heartbeat, I feared that everything we had tried to build crumbled, the foundations we had laid with words, caught now in the winds of fate. With the noise closing in, the weight of our realities collided again. The sirens grew closer, and a terrible truth seeped into my bones. Would they all become prisoners of this moment, or could they break free into something uncharted, something bright? Just as Derek turned to bolt, something caught in his eyes, a glimmer of uncertainty that begged the question. Would he run toward or away from what we so desperately wanted? And then, as if the universe conspired to thrust us further into chaos, a figure emerged from the darkness, fists raised, a new player in this drama, coming to stake a claim amidst a choice that none of us could foresee. My heart collapsed at the sight, knowing full well that whatever lay ahead could shatter everything we had fought to uphold. I stood there, rooted in place, as another shadow stepped out from the chaos, solid and imposing. It was Alex, the boy from across the street, his eyes glinting with recognition. The moment his gaze locked onto Derek, the fury of the storm around us intensified, thickening the tension that clung to the air like molasses. It was confounding how all the hurt, anger, and uncertainty mingled to create an atmosphere heavy enough to drown us all. Alex? Liam breathed, eyes flickering between the two boys, caught between disbelief and an urgent thread of hope shimmering in the shadows. I felt it too, the tremors of something profound weaving through the chaos we found ourselves tangled in. Alex, who had once been part of this group, who had slipped away into his own world despite an unbreakable bond of understanding somehow. He had returned, and with that return came a possibility for healing that I had scarcely dared to envision. Derek, you're better than this, Alex declared, his voice resonating with a youthful yet forthright conviction. This isn't who we are. Fighting, feasting off pain, it's not the answer. The sincerity in his tone pulled at the fragile threads of truth that could connect us. Something tangible amid the ethereal shadows of our past, Derek scoffed. But there was a flicker of uncertainty in his stare, the facade of anger barely masking the turmoil churning just beneath the surface. And what do you know about anything? You turned your back on us. But before Alex could respond, the wail of sirens grew nearer, a reminder that time was running out. Yet instead of fear, I felt a boldness rising, igniting a fire within me as the pieces began to fit together in that intricate puzzle we had danced around for too long. Derek, I spoke, finding my voice amidst the chaos that threatened to overtake us. Are you so afraid to be wrong to share who you truly are that you would rather chisel off your humanity to fit into a mold that destroys what really matters? The solid wall of bravado that Derek had built quivered for the briefest moment. I saw him, his guard slipping, a boy struggling with shadows while desperately wanting connection, and my heart twisted in empathy for him, feeling the roots of despair that knotted deep into his chest. Just then, a startling sound broke through the tension, a rush of footsteps veering toward us. I turned to see the bewildered faces of other kids gathering at the edges of our conflict, some whispering to one another in hushed perplexity. They hadn't come to fight, but rather with uncertainty written all over their youthful faces, compelled to peer into the battle that had unfolded in their own neighborhood. "Stop this!" shouted a girl I recognized, Natalie, from Liam's science class, a blazer over her shoulders, her expression a mixture of shock and concern. "What is happening?" "Yeah," another voice chimed in, stepping forward, hands planted on hips. It was Rhett from band practice, eyes narrowed yet filled with inquisitive energy. "This isn't what we signed up for." And like that, the scene shifted. Instead of confrontation, a plea began to weave its way through uncharted territory, a bridge tumbling down the walls of anger built high around all of us. I couldn't help but feel the warmth rising in my chest as this ragtag band of viewers turned into our allies, shining a light on what we had yearned for from the very start. The murmurs galvanized the silence, making the gathered crowd come together, united not by the darkness that threatened, but by the clarity of honesty. "This isn't about rivalries or fame," Liam spoke, igniting inspiration he hadn't known lay dormant within him. "This is about feeling seen, about belonging in a world that often tries to tear us apart." He reached for Alex, who stood steadfast, genuinely believing in Liam's words. "And it's about kindness, isn't it?" Alex added, words tumbling out with raw vulnerability. "We can choose to uplift instead of breaking each other down. This world offers so much beauty if we dare to grab hold of it." The ripple of fear began to crest, melting into something softer as those once reluctant to join found their voices. "I feel alone too sometimes," Natalie admitted, catching Derek's eye. "We don't have to carry these burdens in isolation. We deserve better." Each of us was simultaneously a mirror and a thread that tied back toward a lost thread reconnection. My heart raced as I glimpsed the truth. Amid the shadows, this moment could spark a revolution toward understanding, to tearing apart the hurt that had been stitched into our conversations. I turned my gaze back to Derek, desperate and raw in his pain, as the voices of our peers created a symphony of support ringing in the air, echoing hope where despair once resided. "Derek, this is your chance too," I said, voice steadying with every utterance. "You don't have to do this alone. We can reshape who we are." At last, clarity cradled in the haze of darkness began to swirl. Derek stood, fists clenched, a boy caught between the tug-of-war battles in which he'd been entrenched for so long. His vulnerability was a glimpse of hope, waited, teetering at the precipice between what he'd known and the promise of what could be. The sirens blared unnaturally close now, each echo a reminder of the urgency this moment carried. We could either become part of a story written in chaos or reclaim the narrative and pen something worthy, something that stood in opposition to pain. Steeling himself, Derek's chin lifted slightly, as if the shadows around him hadn't truly consumed the light within. "What if I choose not to fight?" he asked, voice trembling on the edge of a breakthrough, exposing a fragility that shattered the facade he had portrayed for far too long. A collective breath hung in the air, a fragile bridge formed from every heart entwined, waiting for someone to cross. "You can choose to connect," Lily urged, the transformation of her fear morphing into a palpable energy radiating between us all. "You can choose to heal, like we all are." And as the clarity of truth settled over us, I could almost see it, the luminous circle of resilience binding us, a powerful testament to hope and fragility coursing through the hearts of all those present. In that heartbeat of connection, the tide shifted. We were no longer battered by the winds of pain, but ignited by the beauty of shared humanity. Liam, standing beside me, reached for Derek with an open hand. "This is our moment, man. We can't change the past, but we can define what happens from here on out together." Tears threatened to spill as I held my breath, the world turning to slow motion before my eyes. And I felt at the exquisite weight of potential intertwining around us all, plunging down the chaotic undercurrent into the depths of possibility. Slowly, Derek's defenses crumbled beneath the weight of collective compassion. His gaze flickered from Liam's eyes to Alex waiting almost prayerfully beside him, to Natalie, and then toward the thrumming heart of the gathered spectators. Hesitation lingered like a thread caught on a thorn, But then a sudden shift began to unfold, a fragile piece threatening to blossom atop the soil of turmoil. And as his fingers unfurled, I held on to that moment the way every shadow danced into the light, forming a mosaic illuminated by the strength that grew from the understanding we carved together. Derek took a deep breath and finally reached out. It was the gentle collision of flesh against flesh, the very real act of connection, and in that singular moment, everything shifted. "Yeah," he breathed, voice unsteady but tinged with newfound vulnerability. "Let us try." Just like that, the chains of hurt began to break, a testament to how intertwined our lives had truly become. I felt the flood of relief wash over me, pouring out every ounce of compassion I'd saved for this moment. And somehow, amidst the shrapnel and chaos, I realized that this was the sunrise rising from the ashes of despair. And it was beautiful. As the sirens faded and the shadows receded, we stood together not just as individuals, but as a patchwork family forged in the burden of pain and the resilience of love. A dawn more radiant than any darkness could ever dare to claim, in the gentle hum of a new beginning. As the light washed over us, I could feel the whisper of hope in every heartbeat, a promise that no matter the struggles to come, we were no longer alone in the storm. And I breathed deeply, exhaling the weight of my fears as the brilliant colors illuminated our skin, sinking deep into my heart. "The only way through this," I whispered, echoing the collective truth we had sown, "is together." It wasn't just a triumph. It could, perhaps, be the moment we finally chose to understand what it truly meant to belong. It was the beginning of everything reframed anew. As I watched the dawn break with the collective warmth of new friendships forged from shared truths, my spirit soared, and I knew this journey was nothing short of miraculous. And as the first rays of light bathed us in hope, I took my son's hand, ready to embrace whatever came next in a world so achingly beautiful and filled with promise that I couldn't help but wonder what would tomorrow bring.